Doctor Who Episode 7, Wish World. So, these are my first thoughts on the episode as a whole, and yeah, just sort of my first thoughts on it. And I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, I thought this video could go one of two ways. I thought I was either gonna really like this episode, or I was gonna find it a huge letdown, and that's kind of how I've been feeling about a lot of the episodes of season 2, with most of them, like the vast majority of them so far, I've liked. But there are a few episodes which I just completely flat out disliked, I for multiple reasons. But if you want to go ahead and check out the full reviews on their episodes, then you can do to find out the reasons for why I dislike them episodes. So, Wish World. Where do we start in this episode? Because there's a lot of things that happened in this episode. Let's start off with the basics. So, we have, visuals and audio. So, visuals in this episode were absolutely stunning. The CGI, as always, Disney Plus budget, on point. The acting in this episode, I think, was on point as well. I really liked the acting and also the music in this episode. The actual episode score was genuinely good. I found myself thinking, oh, okay, this music is really good and fits the scene in quite a lot of scenes in this episode, which is good that it's like a standout thing. The sets and location shoots, again, really cool, and again, 10 out of 10 as it has been throughout of this season. Now let's get on to the writing element of this episode, which I think was done a lot better. Now, if you've been watching these videos and these reviews so far, you will know that I'm not very fond of the episode Lucky Day. And, well, a couple of reasons was Conrad and just the whole writing element of that episode I just found to be very it just wasn't for me. And it just wasn't a great episode in my eyes, and that's completely fine. If anybody watching this loved that episode, that is also completely fine. There is always going to be Doctor Who episodes that people love and other people don't like. It's just the nature of the show. But, yeah, I found this episode to be much better in the portrayal of Conrad to Wish World. Because in Wish World, it felt very forced. It felt like Conrad was just this representative of right-wing internet people, and it felt very forced and not really that well written into the story. Whereas in this episode, Wish World, he felt like a much more of an established character, and he felt like a lot more depth to him as well in this episode. I found myself liking the portrayal of his character a lot more in this episode than I did back in Lucky Day. That is also enhanced by the Rani's, technically, because the bi-generation thing, which I'm not the biggest fan of the bi-generation stuff, but the Rani's, or I'll just call them the Rani and Mrs. Flood. Both of them characters really good in this story. Mrs. Flood, played by Anita Dobson, she did an absolutely amazing job at acting and portraying that character in this episode. So yeah, really good. We also had, again, the Rani, which is obviously a big returning classic villain. And yeah, really good throughout this episode. You do feel like she is a big threat and that she is very much in control throughout the entire episode, which is very, very good things to notice. The Doctor does feel a little bit helpless in this episode as well, which I really, really like. I like the idea of the Doctor and companions feeling quite helpless and out of the depth a little bit, because the one biggest weapon that the Doctor has is his mind, and his mind is corrupted in this episode to the point where he doesn't really know what is reality and what isn't reality, because he is living in this new reality which is part of Conrad's world. Now, there is definitely some messaging within this episode, but I have to say I think it's much better baked into the actual plot line than it was back in Lucky Day. Lucky Day felt like it was this idea, and then the episode was kind of just tacked on around the idea. So it felt like Russell had an idea to do an episode about essentially how evil people online can be, or like right-wing people online can be, and essentially using that as the villain arc of the story, and then just kind of like tacking a Doctor Who story around it, because there wasn't much depth to that, the actual Doctor Who element of that story. It just felt like an idea with a story kind of tacked on around it. This episode, however, Wish World, I felt like it was really, really nicely baked into the episode, to the point where you have things like, you do have the slight elements of messaging which are in there, but it's much better written, I think, in this episode. So that's definitely a positive, and that's something that I do find that I think about a lot of the episodes in Season 2. The ones that are my favourites seem to have a more subtle message to them, but a message that is actually woven into the episode much better. So yeah, I'm definitely adding this to my list of episodes that I have enjoyed from this season. And for those who are thinking, I'd say The Story in the Engine, the Interstellar Song Contest, and Wish World are my favourite three, closely followed by Lux. You could probably throw Lux into that mix, and The Well. I completely forgot about The Well for a sec then. But yeah, so you got The Well, The Story in the Engine, the Interstellar Song Contest, Wish World, and Lux. That is 5 out of 7 episodes so far that I think were genuinely good, and some of the best of Ncuti Gatwa's era. Unfortunately, there are 2 episodes in this season which I was not really a big fan of, and the reason as for why, you can go ahead and find out in the reviews. It's fairly obvious. But yeah, the Robot Revolution, I just thought it was a very... It was clearly a politically message-driven episode, and again, it just felt like the plot line was kind of tacked around the messaging, and also I just think it was a bit of an underwhelming opener for a series, similar to how Space Babies was, but I did think it was done in a little bit of a better way than Space Babies. But there's just certain scenes like where the Doctor willingly kills Alan and then laughs about it because he's the evil character, or supposed to be the evil character in this episode. And yeah, it just doesn't sit right with me that the Doctor is just making light of that, because I always used to think that like the Doctor was kind of like this moral high ground to where he would try and turn a person good rather than just let them die and laugh about them, which I thought was a little bit odd. And then also Lucky Day, for a lot of the same reasons. I just think that the messaging was a little bit too heavy on this episode, and therefore it kind of just felt a little bit forced, and there was just so many lines in Lucky Day that they said and that I just visibly cringed at, because it was just like, I wouldn't have put them lines in there personally, and I would have tried to weave it into the story a little bit more. Like for example, Conrad is trying to prove that aliens are fake and that UNIT are essentially a hoax. So the way that he does that is by dressing up as fake aliens and catching UNIT for trying to stop the aliens, which again just doesn't really make that much sense if you think about it. And I think the reason why you have all of these little pieces of the story which don't quite add up and don't quite make sense is just simply because I think the main focus of this episode was the main message of the episode, and again I think the story was kind of tacked on a little bit around that messaging. But yeah, that is my thoughts on the series. But yeah, for this episode, Wish World, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a thoroughly good episode. Little spoiler here, so if you haven't watched, skip it like 20-30 seconds, but the return of Omega is pretty insane, I'm not gonna lie. I'm very, very much looking forward to, hopefully, fingers crossed, seeing Omega. I just hope that they don't turn him into a giant cat, because that would just be massively underwhelming, like how they turned Sutek into a giant dog. So I hope they stay true to his look, with portraying Omega. But yeah, we're definitely, I'm very, very excited to see his return. But yeah, that's basically the end of my first thoughts on this episode. I know this one went on a little bit longer than usual, but I just had to get my first thoughts out there. I am going to be doing a full in-depth review on this episode as well, so these are coming out, by the way. They're just taking a very, very long time to sit down, write, produce them, edit them, get them up, all of that kind of stuff. So please do bear with me with these videos. They are coming. I've just got to find some extra time to write and edit and make these videos, but they are coming. So hit that subscribe button and smash a like on this video if you're excited to see my full reviews of these episodes. But until then, that is basically the end of this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe as usual. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.